Right now, in the middle of the eastern Pacific Ocean, the water is warmer than it has been in years. And the atmosphere above it is lining up to do something it normally does not do this fast. A tropical wave sitting a couple hundred miles off the coast of southern Mexico has just been given a 90% chance of turning into a tropical depression within the next 2 to 3 days. If it forms, it will get a name: Amelia. And Amelia would be the 5th named storm of a season that is already running weeks ahead of where it normally sits in mid-July. That number matters more than it sounds. 5 named storms this early is not typical. It is a sign that the entire eastern Pacific Basin has shifted into a much more active gear, and it did not happen by accident. Today we are breaking down every single piece of it. A storm that is about to form near Mexico. The separate system NOAA is watching south of Hawaii, a quiet but real watch building in the Gulf of Mexico. And the bigger climate pattern sitting underneath all of it that is going to shape the rest of this hurricane season. No filler, just the facts, region by region, so you know exactly what is coming and what it means for you. If you want the fastest, clearest tropical weather updates without wading through 50 different apps, subscribe right now. You track every system the moment it forms. Let's get into it. Start with the system that matters most right now. The tropical wave south of Mexico. As of this week, the National Hurricane Center has this system sitting a few hundred miles south-southwest of the coast of southwestern Mexico. Right now, it is just a wave. A disorganized area of thunderstorms with no closed circulation yet. But the forecast confidence behind it jumped fast. The 48-hour formation chance is sitting at a medium 40%. The 7-day formation chance has jumped all the way up to a high 90%. When you see a gap that large between the short-term number and the long-term number, it tells you something specific. Forecasters are confident the ingredients are there. They're just waiting for the timing to line up. Here is the simple version of what is actually happening underneath the water. A tropical system needs 3 things to grow: warm ocean water, low wind shear, and enough spin already built into the atmosphere to organize around. Wind shear is just a fancy term for wind blowing at different speeds or directions at different heights in the sky. High shear rips a storm apart before it can organize. Low shear lets it stack up straight and strengthen. Right now, the wind shear over this stretch of ocean is low, and the water underneath it is unusually warm. That combination is exactly what turns a messy cluster of thunderstorms into a real tropical depression. The storm is forecast to track west-northwest, which is good news for Mexico's immediate coastline, because that track carries it further out to sea rather than straight at land. But do not let that fool you into thinking this system does not matter. Here is the part most casual weather watchers miss completely. There is a marine heat wave sitting off the southwest coast of North America right now. That means the ocean water in the path this storm would take if it curves northward is running warmer than average, in some spots several degrees warmer. Normally, a tropical system moving toward higher latitudes runs into cooler water and starts to weaken. This year, that natural braking system is weaker than usual. If Amelia or a storm like it tracks north instead of staying out in the open ocean, it could hold its strength much longer than storms in this position typically do. This has happened before, and the history is worth knowing. Back in 1997, during a strong El Niño year, very similar to what we are seeing develop right now, the remnants of Hurricane Nora tracked north and slammed Southern California with gale-force winds and street flooding. At a latitude where hurricanes almost never have any impact at all, that is the exact kind of setup meteorologists are watching for again this year. It's not a guarantee. A real possibility that changes the entire risk picture for the southwestern United States. Risk level for this system right now, moderate and rising. No coastal watches are in effect yet, but the ingredients are lining up fast. And if you live anywhere along the Pacific coast of Mexico or the southwestern United States, this is the system to keep an eye on for the next several days. Now let's move north, because this is not the only system on the board. South of Hawaii, a separate trough of low pressure is sitting several hundred miles southeast of the islands, producing its own wide area of showers and thunderstorms. The Central Pacific Hurricane Center has given this system a 40% chance of development over the next 48 hours, and a 60% chance over 7 days. The forecast track takes it westward, staying well south of the main Hawaiian Islands, which means direct impacts to Hawaii are considered unlikely at this point. Here's why this one still matters even without a direct hit. When you have 2 separate systems developing in the same basin within days of each other, That is not a coincidence, as the entire eastern and central Pacific atmosphere telling you the environment right now favors tropical development. Almost everywhere warm water exists. One storm can be a fluke. To developing systems in the same week is a pattern. Risk level for the Hawaii system. Low for direct land impact, but worth tracking for surf and rip current risk along south-facing shores, even if the storm stays offshore. Large swells from a passing system can hit beaches days before anyone even sees clouds. Now let's talk about the Gulf of Mexico, because this is the part of the forecast that could matter most for people in the United States over the next week. Forecasters are watching a corridor of tropical moisture setting up near a stalled frontal boundary across the northern Gulf. Right now, there is no organized system. Two things are shifting in a direction that favors development later this week into early next week. Wind shear over the northeastern Gulf is expected to drop, and Gulf water temperatures are currently running 2 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit above average. Warmer water plus lower shear is the same formula we just talked about with Amelia, just playing out in a different ocean, even if nothing organizes into a named storm. Meteorologists are already flagging heavy rainfall as the primary hazard, with the greatest risk currently centered on Florida's panhandle and nearby parts of the southeast. That risk could expand depending on exactly how the system tracks. If you live along the Gulf Coast, this is not a system to panic about yet, but it absolutely is one to watch through the coming weekend. So here's the question everybody watching this is probably asking. Why is all of this happening at once? Why does it feel like the Eastern Pacific suddenly woke up? The answer comes down to one climate pattern sitting underneath everything we just covered. El Niño, NOAA, has confirmed El Niño conditions are in place. With a 63% chance the pattern strengthens into a very strong event by winter. Here's what that actually does to the atmosphere, in plain terms. El Niño warms up a huge stretch of the central and eastern Pacific Ocean. That warmth doesn't just sit there quietly. It reshapes the upper-level winds across two entire ocean basins at the same time. Over the Atlantic and the Caribbean, El Niño tends to increase wind shear, which tears developing storms apart before they can organize. That is exactly why the Atlantic has stayed unusually quiet this year, with forecasters expecting no development there for at least the next week. But over the eastern Pacific, El Niño does close to the opposite. It lowers wind shear and adds extra warm water to fuel storms. Same climate pattern, opposite effect depending on which ocean you're standing over. This is not a small seasonal quirk. NOAA's outlook for the eastern Pacific this year calls for between 15 and 22 named storms. It's compared to a long-term average of around 15. We are already sitting at 4 storms with a 5th. It's almost certainly on the way in the middle of July. That is one of the most active starts to this basin's season in years. And El Niño is the direct reason why. Let's bring this back to what actually matters for you. If you live along the Pacific coast of Mexico, watch this week's storm closely, even though the current track keeps it offshore. Small shifts in these tracks happen constantly in the first few days after formation. If you live in the southwestern United States, including Southern California and Arizona, this is the year to actually pay attention to eastern Pacific storms, not just Atlantic hurricanes. A warm water track north, like Nora took in 1997, is a real possibility given the marine heat wave currently sitting off the coast. If you live in Hawaii, no direct threat currently expected from the system to your south, but watch for elevated surf and dangerous rip currents at south-facing beaches over the coming days. If you live along the Gulf Coast, especially Florida's Panhandle and the central Gulf Coast states, keep an eye on the forecast through this weekend into early next week. Even without a named storm, heavy rain and localized flooding are already on the table. And no matter where you live along a coastline this summer, the same basic prep applies. Know your evacuation zone if you're in a coastal area. Keep a battery-powered radio or a charged phone with alerts turned on. Don't wait until a storm has a name to start paying attention. Because in a season running this far ahead of schedule, the gap between just a wave and tropical storm warning can close in a matter of days. I'll be back with a full update the moment Amelia is officially named. And the moment anything organizes in the Gulf, this season is moving fast, and it is not slowing down anytime soon. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from, and whether your area has ever been hit by an Eastern Pacific storm. Most people don't even know exists. If this breakdown helped you understand what's actually happening out there, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next update, and share this with anyone you know living along the Pacific or Gulf coasts right now. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.